Good afternoon, friends, family, loved ones, enemies, contributors, distractors. This is Kevin Lewis on the Blueprint. And this week's show is called Turning Out the Neon Lights at J State. And I had a different show prepared that I thought I was going to do. Then I had breaking news. Um, and not that it was that great of a news, a big deal as far as I was concerned. Um, but it became a topic of discussion this morning among some people on my social media page. Um, and one of the posts, and for those that didn't know, what happened was Deion Sanders, head coach, football coach at Jackson State University, he accepted the job at Colorado University. And I was kind of surprised because I was hearing from the talking heads on the sports networks that he probably wasn't going to take that job, and I didn't think he would. I thought he would, if he was going to leave, I thought he would leave for a better job. But anyway, the discussion that I was seeing on social media this morning, it was somewhat expected from one of the people that's on my friends list. Everyone that's on our friend list is not our friends necessarily. They're just people we socialize with. But he has a different perspective and outlook on a lot of things than I do. But another person that I really don't know, he asked a question and I chimed in. He said, I don't see why people are upset with Deion Sanders signing with Colorado. He said, please, could someone explain? So I just said, I understand why people would be somewhat upset. And he asked me why. And I went on ahead and gave him an explanation that I could as far as typing a comment on somebody's post. And we kind of went back and forth. And he said, man, Deion Sanders went undefeated this year. They won their conference 2 years in a row. And, he was sacrificing money, blah, blah, blah. And I basically replied, well, I understand that. I understand him wanting a better job. Just because I said I understand someone's point don't mean that I agree with either way. But I understand that that's a better job for him. I understand self-improvement. But what I was telling the person, that's not my mentality. I'm about our improvement. And this is the problem with him taking that job when it comes to our improvement. So that's what I'm going to do my show on. Basically talking about the neon lights going out at K-State. I appreciate Coretta for showing up. Now, I understand sometimes I have a different perspective than some people may have. And I tend to look more intense at things than a lot of people may. But my point was, Deion was not wrong or incorrect for choosing to leave Jackson State for a PWI, because that's a personal decision and a personal choice. He makes the correct decisions for himself and his family and whatnot. So I can't say that he's incorrect. It was a correct decision. Whatever decision he decides to make is a correct decision for him. But my perspective is, like I said, a we perspective. Now, is it about movement, or is it about movement? Is it about a movement, or is it about movement? When I did a whole show on Deion Sanders, I believe, earlier this year. And the job and everything that he was doing at Jackson State, how he was making a big splash in the community as far as economics. The economics was like $20 million when he came on and he started doing his work at Jackson State. He was impactful in more than just on the field. He was impactful for the community. That means a lot for a place that's a state that is the poorest state in our nation. in one of the cities in that state that has a HBCU, historically black college or university, the surrounding area, $20 million means a lot to the economy. You know, and when you're talking about that, you're talking about being in the black, you know, not being in, you know, that's how much they're making. That money goes a long way because everyone is interested in that commodity now. People are coming from people that used to go to the school 10 years ago, 20 years ago. They're coming back. And when you come to the games, you may want to come spend the whole weekend. You're staying at hotels. You're buying food constantly. Even this is the first time I think they had a HBCU on ESPN Game Day, which is a college football show that goes to certain sites, campuses, and they broadcast from there, bringing everyone there, cameramen, you know, production people, all of this stuff they're bringing, and then they bring a notoriety, and then they did a segment on the surrounding area, Jackson State, the food that you could get. They do things like that. This was the first time that they had a HBCU. I believe that's what they said. And it was because of Sanders and the impact that he was making. Everyone knows him. He's football Hall of Famer, deon, you know. He's on commercials with probably what many consider the best college football coach ever, Coach Saban from Alabama. The most recently successful programs, I'll say in the last 10 years, they have the most successful program. And he's doing commercials at a HBCU with the #1 coach in the nation. The FLAC commercials. Well, anyway, that was the impact that I was talking about that Sanders was making. And of course, many of us have seen snippets of him talking to his players, the things that he says. It's inspirational and probably impactful for the kids that he's able to recruit. Going into the recruiting, earlier this year, I know that he had landed a recruit, was the #1 recruit in the nation. He beat out Power 5 schools, and this is what I was doing my show on, talking about the impact that he had. Travis Hunter. You know, and the topic was, it was a movement going on that I believed in. And I probably bought into, because here you have the #1, that had never happened before. A #1 recruit that every school in the nation would take, signed with a HBCU. That was a power move. And I know it had happened with basketball, one of the top 10 recruits signed with a HBCU, but this is something that I have been beckoning us to pay attention to and put our energy towards as a people, trying to get our youth, our talent, to invest in our HBCUs. These are our schools. These are our colleges, but all of our resources, we're sending our resources to other schools, to primary white institutions, PWIs. They get all the money off of our resources. They're not putting anything back into our communities. They have the TV contracts. Anytime you turn on ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, ESPN, they don't show HBCUs. They have no reason to, but they are showing our kids, our talent, our resources. They're making money off of our kids, our talent, and our resources. So what I was getting at, or what I am trying to get at, it is a bigger picture to what was happening with the neon lights being on in Jackson State. And it was other former NFL players that started trying to get coaching jobs, or maybe they were saying, well, hey, Sanders is making a change. Maybe some of these other guys can do the same and get some of these recruits. Because before, they wouldn't even try to recruit a 4-star, 5-star player. Those are the top echelon high school players coming out. The HBCUs didn't even try to recruit them because they felt there was no chance for them. Why spend money trying to elicit or solicit the talents of people that's not going to come here? We're wasting money. would get the leftovers. That's what the HBCUs, that's what they were doing. They were getting the leftovers. No knock on any players that play with HBCUs or anything, but basically what happens with our people, if we had a choice, we would choose the USCs, the University of Texas, the Alabamas, the University of Georgia, even Georgia Techs and Florida States, Miami's over any HBCU. That's how we were doing. So when the Sanders situation came about and top recruits started transferring from the school that they were at to come to Jackson State, there was a plethora of recruitments and transfers. So he was getting talent. He was able to recruit talent, even against the big boys, our talent. Even some of the, even Coach Saban had made a remark about it, like he wasn't pleased with it. And Sanders kind of shot back at him, and I thought that was going to be a movement. I thought they were trying to build something. Because also to go along with that, Deion Sanders had been wanting to be a coach before he got the Jackson State job. And what I'm actually getting at, what I'm saying all of this is in a microcosm what has happened with us. This is why we have HBCUs, because in the late 1800s, early 1900s, when we were coming out of slavery, transitioning to America, and America that didn't want us in their schools. It was a segregated society. After being released from slavery, we had to stay over the tracks. We had to build our own towns. We had to stay in certain sections of cities. We had to go through or drink out of certain water fountains because the country was segregated. We had to sit in the back of the bus. Because actually they probably didn't even want us on the same bus, but we didn't have any busing system that could get us around. So they made it to, okay, y'all could ride the bus, but y'all got to sit in the back. Y'all could come to the movie theater, but y'all got to come in the back door. And when y'all do come in, y'all got to sit up on the balcony. But y'all can't go to school with us. Y'all can't intermix with our kids. This is why the Jerry Jones photo became a topic, because this is segregationists fighting against it. They were trying to segregate the schools. But anyway, this is in a microcosm. It's a reflection of what happens to our people and what's happening now in society that many of us don't look at. Now, when I'm going into the reason that we have the HBCUs is because we weren't welcome at the primary white institutions. But when integration came about, we fought civil rights for integration. It also hindered us. It hurt us to the point that we're not wanting to go to HBCUs. If we had HBCUs with just black talent, because none of our players will be able to go to PWIs, the HBCUs will be powerhouses in football. The number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 ranked teams will be the best teams in the country. They'll all be HBCUs. If you look at all the players and all the top programs in America, the top NCAA football teams in America, most of their best players are black players. You put all those black players and make an all-star team out of them, they will beat the hell out of all the rest of the talent. That's the resources and the talent that we have. But with integration, we left our HBCUs and we integrated with primary white institutions that wanted to use us for sports. Basically, that's what they wanted to use us for, basketball and football. Same thing in basketball. For all our basketball talent, which the HBCUs, those HBCUs will be the richest programs in the world. I'm not just talking about in America, in the world. Because all eyes will be on them. All eyes are on the elite programs in the world. That's where the money comes from. But instead, our HBCUs are struggling, fledgling, because they don't have the resources. They're looking for handouts from the government. When these politicians are running for presidency, Biden, he will make promises to give them extra money. Then once they get in, then they renege and don't give them nearly as much as they said. But what they're doing, they're getting all these votes from these black kids that's at all these black colleges, because the liberals get most of the black vote. So you're going to promise all of these things. Those kids have parents. Those kids are voting themselves. You come out and you say you're going to give them $44 million, and then you come back and it's 40. I'm 4. You know what I'm saying? You're giving them 4. Whatever the promises and what actually comes out. You know, it's like a slap in the face to our people twice. We slapping ourselves in the face and they're slapping us in the face. So what I saw and what I heard from him was that he was trying to make a difference. Now, again, Coach Sanders had no coaching experience, high-level coaching experience, meaning in college, NFL, or anything, not even as a coordinator. The primary white institutions wouldn't hire him, not even as a coordinator, defensive back coach, an offensive coordinator, which is a higher thing than a special like defensive backs running back coach. They wouldn't hire him as a coordinator. Why? Because he had no experience. They didn't know. They didn't care. They didn't hire him as a defensive back coach. What he seems like would be a great thing. His alma mater was Florida State. It seems that he was an All-American, high-profile player with Florida State, went on to the NFL to be one of the best corners ever, defensive backs ever. It seemed like if he was looking for a job, that one of the primary white institutions, especially the one that he went to, would come and say, okay, well, you could be a defensive back coach. Then you develop and you see what it takes to be a coach. Then maybe you'll become a coordinator. Maybe not at that school, at a smaller school. Then you work yourself up. Once you become a coordinator, then you could become a coach. People could say, okay, his defense works good. Maybe we could use him here. He'll become a coordinator at a PWI, and then maybe they'll fire the coach, and you become a head coach. Start getting head coaching experience. Then what you do is you keep moving up. And what I wanted to do was play a snippet of him telling his players he was moving on, and this is what he was saying. But for some reason, my computer that I had, it won't play audio now. I don't know why, but I had planned to play it. And that's what some of the dialogue that I was going to have was going to be talking about, some of the things that he said. He was saying basically, in coaching, you don't you either get elevated or you get terminated. You don't stay stagnant, which is not true. Eddie Robinson was the most winningest coach in NCAA history, and he coached at Grambling State. That's all he did, coached at Grambling State. So he stayed there, became the most winningest coach in the history of college football, and he retired there. So you do, and Deon was saying you either get elevated or terminated. So either you're gonna move on or they're gonna fire you, and I'm moving on. They weren't about to fire Deion Sanders at Jackson State. That was the best thing that probably happened to Jackson State since Walter Payton, but and probably even more impactful than that. Just saying that Walter Payton was a product of theirs. So you have the HBCUs being used. This is what my issue is. They're being used. No one else wanted to hire you. No one else even wanted to give you a chance as a coordinator or a position coach, which is less than a coordinator. None of these primary white institutions want to do that. Not even your alma mater wanted to do that. But the black university and colleges welcomed you not only to just be a coordinator, but they said, we'll make you the head coach. See, before you could be great as ever at whatever it is you do, but if no one gives you the opportunity to do that, then no one will ever see it, and you'll never know it, that you had greatness in you to succeed. We gave him, and when I'm talking we, I'm talking about our HBCUs. When I say we, understand I'm talking about either my people or our colleges. When I'm talking about they, I'm talking about PWIs and their institutions, basically, of racism. I appreciate Teresa showing up. Teresa, she said, I'm going to read the comment. She said he was pulling talent from PWIs, so they offered him a job so that all the good he did can be reversed. I appreciate that comment. She said divide and conquer all over again. And I appreciate that. This is what I was trying to get the guy to understand, but I was doing it in the text, which, you know, you only could text so much. I'm only going to text so much. And I'm not going to get in between the lines of actually what I'm trying to say. And I appreciate those comments, because that's what it is. Because after Deon he pulled the top recruit, start pulling recruits from their school, they have a transition portal, which means it used to be if you wanted to leave a school and go to another one, you had to sit out a year. Now they have something called the portal. And what you can do after the season, you could just leave and go to another school and you're eligible to play. He had players, and I was announcing on the show I did earlier in the year about what he was doing, was he had people transferring from these major PWIs coming to Jackson State. That was something I thought was going to be a movement. He was talking about a movement within itself, but I was thinking of he was there for the movement and the cause of strengthening our own schools with our own resources, and people would come there. Coaches would say, hey, this is where I want to be, and since y'all are the only ones that care about me or us, this is where I'm going to be. This is what I was hoping that people will realize. Some of the Dr. Boyce Watkins and Claude Andersons and some of these high profile teachers and educators work at the black HBCUs. After you make your money, I understand if you go out and make your money, because we all need resources. But the thing is, the reason the HBCUs can't pay for the top educators is because they're not making dollars from the top resources in their sports like these other schools are doing. See, Alabama will make a whole lot of money. Millions on top of millions, a fistful of money every week. They don't give that money to the players. They don't reinvest into our communities. They turn around and then they'll pay their physics professors. They'll turn around and they'll pay their poli-sci professors who are educating their kids. Not our kids, they're educating their kids. Our kids are only there for the field and the court. That's the only thing that our kids are there for. And most of the time, they're not making scientists out of these football players. These football players are there to make money, to go to the NFL, or they basketball players are there to go to the NBA. They're not there to become physics professors or anything like that. So we're being used for our resources to improve their resources, because they have no problem with our kids coming to their schools, going to school with their daughters, as long as you don't touch them or anything that rhyme with touch them. They don't mind that. But they need you on that field. They need you on that court to make the school dollars. And this is what my point is. It's a microcosm of our society, the whole thing, the dance that we go through with our HBCUs. The kids that the HBCUs get are the ones that the primary white institutions don't want. That's mostly how it is. So I was hoping that it'll be some type of change with that. Michael said the transfer portal, and I appreciate that. And Teresa said when he doesn't have a good season, they will fire him just like any other black coach and remind him that you still a nigga. She didn't say that, but she said the reason he said he took the job at Jackson State was he is not matching up with a departure speech. It's not matching up with the departure speech. I'm sorry. And that's what I was getting at. What he was saying, why he was there and why he was taking he was acting as if he was for the movement, our movement, a movement of improvement. Now he's saying, hey, this is how it is. And I don't, and I see, this is my thing. I understand that. That's what all the coaches do in college football. But the disappointment that people are having is because they thought he was going to be different, because he spoke differently. He spoke about improving our historically black colleges. He talked about us getting talent that we weren't getting before. He spoke about elevating the HBCUs to where they're on a level playing field with these other universities. He had kids coming in. The guy that I was trying to convey this to, he came back and said, come on, man. He was giving up money. I'm like, and he said his winning and losing record was this, and this. He did a whole lot for them. It was time for him to move on. And I told the dude, I said, I'm not talking about him as a person. I'm talking about we as a people. We're talking on two different levels. I'm not talking about the last 3 seasons, their record of winning. I'm looking down the line, because if you're talking like this to these kids, then you're moving on. It's going to be 1 or 2 things that's going to happen. Maybe 3. Small chance at 3. 1 or 2 things. They're going to move with him because they only came to Jackson State because he recruited them and they love playing for him. They're going to move with him in the transfer portal. Or if he gets better talent than them and he doesn't need them, he doesn't pick them up, they're going to leave to another school. And then what kind of message are you leaving for our kids? This is what I'm getting at in the disappointment that people may have. He was correct. He was correct in whatever decision he made. That's his decision to make. But was it a correct decision for us? In the bird's eye view, the long range view of things for us and our people and our universities, because this is what the HBCU thing is. It's not just about these kids, are they able to get a job? It's about us empowering ourselves. That's the bottom line. I'm tired of hearing people complain about our situation when you're not doing anything to improve our situation. I'm tired of seeing us go to them to beg for money. I'm tired of seeing that the HBCUs have to get grants from the government. And I'm not talking about the kids going there. I'm talking about the universities themselves. And then the politicians could use that against them. Hey, you get these kids to talk about this and discuss this, because we are holding your financial credibility in our hands. You get money from us every year. Whether it's $1 billion or what, or it's going to be that somebody had promised 44 billion, whatever. And then it turns out to be, well, I'm only going to be able to get y'all 2. But it's at least more than we was giving y'all before. I hate to see us have to beg somebody that is in a position of oppression of our people and suppression of our people. We're going to them to beg for money. Our schools and institutions are going to them to beg for money. These kids, I think it's like 60% of dentists, black dentists in America, went to HBCUs. It's all kind of numbers like that. If you look up the percentage of black lawyers, attorneys, a certain 70-something% of them, they went to HBCUs. This is our future. The quality of the education that they're getting depends on the quality of the teachers that are teaching there. The quality of the teachers that are teaching there is coming from the money that the school can make and pay them. When we got all these resources, power is not land. Power is not money. Power is not even resources. Power is the control of resources. That's what power is. That's what I got from Dr. Amos Wilson. If power land, people say, well, you got to own land to have power. Africa has a whole lot of land, more land than a whole lot of countries. But they don't have no power in Africa. Not on the economic stage of the world. Africa has all the resources. You can have resources, but Africa don't have any power. Because someone else is controlling the resources that's coming out of Africa. Africa got all the diamonds. Most of the gold and silver. most of the resources needed to make cell phones and technology and all of these things. But yet Africa is poor because they don't control their resources. We are poor in America as a people because we don't control our resources. We could have $1 trillion of spending money, but those are mainly entertainers and athletes making money for someone else. Individually, they're making money. But those individuals, if they had a we mindset, there's very few of them that do. And we've seen this in the current weeks or so with them forcing our commentators, what they're calling these black players that have their own opinion about things and don't go along with the oppressors' ideas or these other people's. You hurt their feelings, then all of a sudden they got power. They back their people. They got power. If we backed our people, we backed our institutions, we'll have power. I'm going to read a few comments. A couple of comments from Michael. I had to go all the way back. Mike said, I appreciate you showing up also. He said, this is a business. You have to think about Jackson State is offering $500,000 and Colorado was offering $4 million. The higher pay is obvious choice. Now, what he does with his opportunity is all on him. That's one way to look at it, and that's the way that we've been looking at things from the beginning. And I'm going to submit to you this. Something that I have written down because I understand that argument. In fact, I'm going to go back to that because I'm going to keep reading what you said. He said, Michael Johnson, he said, he was at Jackson State because that was the only opportunity he was given. Exactly. That's exactly, you're right. And that goes against the argument. He said, also he said facts. His speech and his wisdom, it is what it is. Okay. Now, I'm going to go back to the first comment that I read about the pay. What you're talking about is sacrifice. This is what they did. They didn't want us in their schools. They didn't want us in their institutions. Why do you think they accepted us in their schools and institutions? Because they had an open heart for us. If they had an open heart and their heart was that open, they wouldn't have let us ride in the buses and make us get in the back. They wouldn't have water fountains that's separated. All of these things was happening when we had HBCUs. Our people have made sacrifices to fight the government for us to be able to go to the same institutions. Now it's our choice. That's all it is. It's a freedom of choice. If we choose to want to go to one of their institutions, we have the right to. They can't discriminate against us. That's against the Constitution. That's against the law. You can't discriminate based on race, sex, and things like that, age, gender, whatever. So, integration opened doors for us. But when you go through one door, you're closing another door. Sometimes we choose to go through the other door, the door that they leave open for us. Only reason they leaving it open for us is because they want our talent. They're not opening their arms for kids that go to Sam Houston to go to Colorado and all this stuff like that based on their academics. They got their own kids that they can have go to their school off of academics. They only want our football players, basketball players, some volleyball players, things like that. Track. That's all they want us for, is our resources. They're being resourceful. They're making that sacrifice because they don't want us there. But they're making a sacrifice. We have to learn to make sacrifices. The integration that happened, and I'm going to bring this here locally, since my man Mike, you from San Antonio. There's a movie that I've plugged a lot of times. It's called A Walk on the River. Similar to Tulsa, Wall Street, and everything like that, a lot of these places across the country. We were segregated and we were forced to live amongst ourselves. The thing that happened, the early 20s, there was race wars going on. That's what they called them around America. A lot of them here in Texas. Paris, Texas, Slocum, Texas. Tyler, Texas. Houston. In fact, the biggest court martial in the United States history happened in Houston when black soldiers were trying to defend their people that got out of World War One, trying to defend them against the race riots that was happening in Houston. Those people were seeking out black people and basically killing them. Why was that happening? Why am I even talking about that? Because the thing that was happening in America at that time, economically, we weren't part of their economic system, what became Wall Street. So what was happening is the billionaires started buying up everything from the millionaires, and America was starting to go through a depression. A recession first and became a Great Depression, which was like what, 29, right? Why is that significant? Before that depression, people were feeling the economic squeeze, the normal man and woman in America. Not us, because we were forced to live in our own communities. We weren't integrated into their community. We could work for them, but we couldn't live amongst them, and they would give us the jobs, the least paying jobs, or they just wanted manual labor, sort of like now. So what was happening, same thing at this time, was our schools. We weren't able to go to their schools. We had to develop and create our own schools. They helped us develop some of our own schools so that we won't fight to be going into theirs. So we got our HBCUs. The HBCUs was taking our own talented kids, education-wise, creating our own talent. That's what was happening. Now, when integration, the civil rights movement came about, like I said, they were coming in. Let me go back to the 20s. The reason they was killing us because we were prospering in our communities that was detached from the American economy, because we weren't part of their economy. We had to get out of slavery, develop our own towns, develop our own talent, because we weren't being educated or talent wasn't being educated, which means developed in their institutions. We had to do that on our own. Anything that we knew how to do or someone knew how to do, we were learning on our own, but we were flourishing as a people. Those white people started seeing, while they were being crunched by the economy, they were seeing we were prospering. So what would they do? They were jealous. They were coming into our towns or our side of towns, and they were killing our people. They found any excuse and any reason. This is called the blood wars of the race wars of 1920s. Started in some of them is 1916 all the way up to 1925 and all these things like that. This is what happened with Tulsa. Some incident happened, Rosewood, Tulsa, Slocum, some incident happened, and they used an excuse to go out and start going to our side of town and killing our people, slaughtering our people, burning down not just our people, but burning down their businesses. This is what was happening. So the reason they were doing that is because they would have to, we used to couldn't go to their stores. Or if we did come to their store, they treated us like crap. When we start having our own thing, they had to come to our stores. That's a very humbling thing. It's very humbling to see a people that you say are less than you and inferior to you to be prospering in the time that you're struggling. So when they came to our stores and they said, they had an uppity attitude, but you're a consumer. You're a consumer coming in somebody that's inferior to you. We weren't looking down on them. They were looking down on us, but they were having to give us money. So they were acting, it was friction. They come there and they act a certain way. A lot of these riots and wars was happening at that time. Detroit, Chicago, Atlanta, New York, all across the country. Entire towns were being slaughtered and killed. Those people had that mentality for us. Not saying we only gonna kill the men. They were killing our kids and our women too. There's books, the massacres in Slocum, the massacres in Paris, Texas, the thing that happened in Houston with our troops, and when our own government they court-martialed and they hung them here in San Antonio, Salados Creek. That's how deep I'm going with all of this. At that time, we wasn't welcome. The movie that was showing some of this stuff happening was The Walk on the River, locally. We were prospering. People was coming all outside of Texas from different states, musicians and things like that, to come to San Antonio because we had that little oasis here also. Our clubs was integrated. We would let the Hispanics, the Mexicans come in. We let whites come in. And the blacks was there. So people that was coming from the north, they was like, man, this is a place to be. This is the place to have a good time when we going on these bus tours traveling. They were coming to our side of town. We had our own taxis, companies. We had all kind of businesses like that. Probably not to the extent of Black Wall Street, but it was to an extent that it was making us stand out. That got shut down through integration. We fought for integration. We started leaving our own businesses and going to the businesses that were downtown. And these businesses was around when I came here. I can't think of some of the names of them, but they were talking about these businesses downtown. The candy shops. We started leaving our mom and pop things to go to what they had, which was better. And this is the thing that you're talking about. This is the reason I'm bringing it up. More money. Deion Sanders is already a millionaire. He played in the NFL. He already had millions. We left our mom and pops to go to their institutions, to go to their cab companies. The cab companies probably had better cars. Their movie theaters probably had better seats. Whatever it was, we left our stuff behind, and now we have to go to them because our stuff's closed down, and we have to go to them for jobs. We have to go to them for luxuries, to go to their restaurants. What was happening at that time? We could go to their restaurants, but what were they doing? They were fighting against us to show up. We were leaving our own stuff. It's not like no restaurants was around for us. We had our own places. Theirs was better. They had the whole country backing them. The country was fighting us, but we had our own stuff. So we were able to legally go into their places. So we started fighting to get into the places that they didn't want us. This is what I'm getting at with Colorado. Now they want him. Now they want to offer him money. Our HBCUs was there when nobody else wanted us. But now we could go to those other places. Now we don't want to go there. We don't want to go to our places that was accepting us, that was built for us. We could make them get to that point where they could pay us. We could make Jackson State, Grambling State, we could make all of them institutions be able to pay the same amount as Colorado or USC. Because the only reason Colorado is able to pay that money is because they own our resources. They own our black talent. Our football players and basketball players would choose to go there instead of Grambling State or Clark or Morehouse. So I understand what you're saying, but I'm just saying, understand what I'm saying. The reason that it's like that is because we are not taking the initiative to change that. We got the power to change that. We got the power to make anybody want to come to our HBCUs to get paid more money but we don't invest in ourselves. It's self-empowerment. That's what I'm talking about. He didn't make a bad decision. However much you saying, $5 million, whatever, $500,000, whatever. But it comes a point that you have to sacrifice, just like they sacrifice to make their schools get to this point. They sacrifice tolerating us. It's not integration, it's toleration. Because they're not fully integration. They tolerate us being on their campuses for what they want. We have to be able to sacrifice some of the luxuries that it's going to take. Some of that luxuries is money. Some of that luxury is comfort. But if we sacrifice, that's what we teach our kids in a microcosm. You got to make sacrifice. You got to study when it's not comfortable to study. You got to stay up a little late. You got to sacrifice not going out with your friends. Because if you want that, you can't do this. If we want that, our institutions to be more prestigious, if we want our institutions to be able to pay our coaches, and the same thing that you're saying about them being able to pay their coach, would you think they'd be able to pay their professors, their economics professors, and all these people like that, as opposed to HBCU? The whole thing that I'm getting at with this is what's strangling our kids, strangling our hope. The same mom and pop places that was in the hood, that didn't have a problem with us coming in there and treated us nice. We fought to get away from them so we could go to their place where they were treating us like crap, not putting the money in their hand, telling them to come in through the back door, still having a segregated water fountain. Those are the people that we were fighting for because they had the best candy. Ooh, their candy was this. We came up on the candy in our hood. We came up in the food in our hood. If we would empower that, like another group of people do in this country that came over here as immigrants, and now they're in a powerful position, and way more powerful than us, and they able to bully us around. Learn from what they did. They patronize their own. It's not illegal for them to patronize their own. It's illegal for someone else to stop them from working with them or having them work for you. But they'll go work for them and they'll turn around and spend their money amongst themselves. We don't have that type of mentality. They don't have no Jewish universities. They don't have no Italian universities. They don't need one. And the reason they don't need one because they're welcome. They have been welcome. But they don't have the resources. They get welcome, but they get welcome to be students because they're not kicking ass in sports like we do. And I'm saying capitalize on our resource. That's our leverage. Deon was not wanted there. Why they didn't make him a coordinator? They didn't even want him as a position coach to make less than $500,000. That's probably what the position coaches make at Colorado University. Less like $200,000, something like that. They weren't even paying him. They didn't even offer him nothing. We offered him a head coaching job. Is he having a struggle? Is he struggling for meals? I don't think so. Like I said, if he's worth $20 million to that economy, to that small little town, and what he was giving to those players, that's probably not going to come there anymore. They're probably going to go back to making or getting 3-star, 2-star recruits that these other colleges getting leftovers. Don't want. This is the predicament that we're in. I'm going to read another comment from Teresa. She said, when he doesn't have a good season, I did read that already, but I wanted to get back to that one. You said when he doesn't have a good season at Colorado. I stopped on there for a reason. I have that also down there. This is the mentality of the elevation or termination of coaches in their PWIs. You either got to win or you're going to kick you out. In the HBCUs, they don't be like that. They don't be like that. I mean, Coach Robinson, like I said, Eddie Robinson, I believe, he was at Grambling for decades. Doug Williams, I mean, all the while, he was there for decades. They wasn't having winning seasons all the time. You're talking about their mentality because that's what they're there for. You're a resource to them. Just like they don't mind our players being there as long as you don't touch their daughters. Most of the time. They may tolerate some of that, but that's not what you're there for. The other time they had an athletic campus on a whole different, the athletics on a different campus anyway. But University of Texas, they still playing their little racist song. Do they care about them players saying that make them uncomfortable? They don't like to sing their song or whatever. These people are fighting back. They love Texas. They love the University of Texas football, but they get mad at the black players when they complaining about a song that they feel is racist. Why you not empathizing, sympathizing for them? Why you not seeing it their way? This make you uncomfortable. Maybe we need to change it. Y'all making y'all damn money off of their backs, off of their sweat, off of their injuries, off of their concussions. That's why the money, yeah, he could take the money if you're starving for money. But at one point, we're going to have to make a sacrifice as a people. How can you as a coach talk about sacrifice to these kids if you're not going to make a sacrifice for our people? What you're telling them is go for the money, go for yourself, don't worry about your people, worry about your family and yourself. And encompassed in that, your family and yourself is going to have you struggling and begging and marching and protesting because some of y'all people going to continue to get killed because we are people without any power. When we are people full of resources, no control of our resources. I'm Let me look at the comment. She said, Teresa said, Deon doesn't need money, but prime time is back with the self-centered need to strut like a peacock. I appreciate those comments. And this is what I thought. I felt like, okay, he did that. I remember he when he first came out with this Neon Deon, Jerry Curl, gold chain stuff. That was elaborate for a college player, but that was him marketing himself. And I thought maybe he had got away from the marketing of yourself. And I think he probably did, but it's not the complete picture. Like I said, this is the only, I'm not saying that he made the wrong decision. You are who you are. You make decisions for yourself. I understand that. But at one point, we as a people got to start looking at our own selves. And I don't mean self-centered. I mean as us as a people. We got to turn to our own selves to empower our own. And if we don't do that, there's a million Deion Sanders out there. There's a million coaches. I'm not going to say a million. It's a bunch of coaches out there. There's millions of talented players out there. There's a number of coaches out there. Prime example. What just happened with the Indianapolis Colts and Jeff Saturday? Jeff Saturday had no coaching experience. Not even in high school. No college. No anything. He was just a broadcaster analyst on ESPN talk show. Just a talking head. He got a head coaching job. He didn't get a position job in the NFL, which pays more than, any of these head coaches, in college at HBCUs. They didn't make him go down to college to prove himself or do anything in high school. He just was called out of the booth. Never was a head of anything. Now you're the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. They had black coaches on their staff that they could have elevated. They fired their coach. All of these coaches that had put in years, blood, sweat, and tears, away from their family, doing all this stuff, that would be looked upon for the rest of the season on how good of a head coach that. That's an opportunity to show the broadcast what you could do. Maybe they people will say, man, the coach went 5-2 under this dude. Maybe he's a good coach. The players love him. He could be a head coach. Maybe they're going to hire him full time. Or maybe another job is open in someplace else and they're going to look at his resume now. They didn't do that. They skipped over all of those coaches that have been on their coaching staff. They skipped over other coaches that have put in dues at other places that want to be head coaches. And they just hired a white guy that used to play football right out of the booth of ESPN studios and gave him the head coaching job. Slap in the face to all these black coaches. Deon, none of those people wanted him. Nobody was going to do him like that. They might do that now, but they didn't. But Colorado is a Power 5 conference, but it's not a Power 5 school. They middle tier school. They haven't done anything in a long time, and that's probably why they are going out on a limb to take Sanders in. Steve Nash, NBA, never coached anything, never coached college, never coached high school, never did anything, but he was given a job. The biggest city in America. Brooklyn by itself is basically the biggest city in America, not even counting the rest of America. The rest of New York City. The Brooklyn Nets franchise. Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving. They had talent. And at the time, they had, I can't think of dude's name, but they had talent. And he was just giving it the keys to the car. Which it should have been easy for him. Because most of the time when coaches starting out, they don't get good jobs. They get the teams that Sacramento's and Detroit's and things like that. That's fledgling and things, Cleveland. You don't see like, okay, you're going to go coach the Lakers. Okay, you're going to go coach, team that just won the championship. You're going to go coach the Celtics. You don't get playoff team jobs when you ain't got no experience at all and you ain't been on no staff. He haven't done anything. They gave him the job. He's a white guy. That's what they do with them. They sacrifice. This is how the establishment treats us as a people. And I'm saying at some point we're going to have to forego the riches, go through the stitches, and empower ourselves. Deon was in a good position. He was getting kids. He was going to be making that university a lot of money to where he could start asking for more money if he wanted to. But it wasn't going to be what Colorado was going to ask. It wasn't going to be what any PWI was going to ask. So now he's going to be up there fighting with Colorado. He's going to be fighting with some of those other schools that's in that conference. And he's going to be fighting with all these big boys about getting these recruits. And if he doesn't win, then they're going to fire him. And if no one else wants him, if these PWIs don't want him, guess where he's going to be wanted at? The HBCUs. Because they're going to always be about black. That's what that's about. But that's what I was getting at with a lot of people. I'm going to read some more comments. I'm sorry. I'm going on a tangent. This is why this Deon intercepted the conversation or the topic that I was going to be on. But this kind of had me perturbed with some of the people that wanted to discuss things. That's a thing that I said. I don't even know if I brought that up. It's something I said before. And Mike, you probably know. It's like you could be asleep, but you got the nerve to snore. That's what I was feeling. I know I had that in the lyric back in the days, but that's and what I mean by that. You could be asleep, but it seems like these people that sleep, they got the most noise that they want to make. They want to be the ones telling people that's deeper, going deeper and deeper. And I'm not talking about anybody on the street. I'm talking about people that was on a post with. It's like they the ones that always want to talk about us like we idiots instead of engaging in a conversation. When the brother was asking anybody to explain, and I was trying to explain how people may be disappointed, he was going back and forth trying to do. I'm like, bro, you was asking for explanation. I wasn't here to debate with you. I'm telling you how people may feel. Because I understand, but I do understand the money part. Because that's what we've been doing all along. I understand why people would take more money. And I understand why they won't understand that it's not just about them as individuals. Unless you're hurting for money. I understand that. But I do understand what other people are talking about. I'm going to ask y'all, do y'all think that any of these people on my wall, college professor at UCLA, Olympic gold medalist, Olympic bronze medal, the struggles that they went through, do you think that Malcolm, they said he could have been a lawyer. He was that intelligent, that articulate as a speaker. They chose a route of most resistance in this country to fight for their own people. She lost her job at UCLA as a professor, an educator, because of her political beliefs and not serving the apple pie and seeing something that was wrong and trying to correct it. Malcolm lost his life choosing to do something and fight for his people. They had him talking at Oxford and all these prestigious universities. He had no letters. He chose a different route because he was accepted by his people and educated by his people. So then he turned around and fought for his people. This is what I'm talking about, sacrifices. That we are able to be a little more comfortable and we seek more comfort with those that are oppressing us. That we had to fight from the comfort from. Fight to get the little bit of comfort that we have. Colorado hasn't been offering us any jobs until it benefits them. And then they give you a pot of gold or a cup of gold. And see how quickly they snatch that away when you don't do what you're asked to do, how you're asked to do it. When? And see, then it becomes not about our people. It becomes about you. We have a bunch of individuals out there, but our people are steady struggling for rights. Our people are steady protesting over rights. Our people are talking about boycotting. A lot of us won't, because that's a sacrifice. So I understand. Well, we won't even boycott something to make things better, which would be a sacrifice, or, a minor sacrifice. We won't even go out and patronize black businesses on a regular, because that takes a sacrifice. Why would I go to this person's place when I could go over here and it costs $2 less? There's a reason why. If you want to know the reason why, unless that's just a rhetorical question, I could give you reasons. Our kids, our grandkids, our predicament. Why are we still going through the struggles that we're going through to be recognized and to get rights? That's the reason why you empower yourselves. That's the reason why you go to Tanks instead of Pizza Hut. Well, Tank's pizza's not as thick. Yeah. Well, it gets real thick in the streets when you're worried about your kids making it home. It got to start somewhere. You going to Chapman's Chicken as opposed to Bill Miller's, or opposed to churches or whatever. Somebody that cares about your kids, that'll give your kids a job no matter what background they had or difficulties they had in this system. Those people will scrutinize your kids. Those people don't care about your kids becoming a manager. So what kind of message are we giving our kids? What kind of message was Deon giving his kids? It's all about me. It's all about money. You made a sacrifice. These kids made a sacrifice. Travis Hunter, some of these other kids, they made a sacrifice to come to Jackson State. With the money, the NIL money that goes on in college, them players could get $1 million easily, being a star player at USC, Alabama, or anything. I remember Coach Saban said, my backup quarterback that ain't took a snap yet, he already making $1 million. Because it's legal for them now to make money, and people can offer them things to go to their school. Those big schools that's able to get these, same thing. It's all reciprocal. They're able to do this because of us. But now these kids are making a sacrifice. If they can't even pay the head coach as much, what you think the boosters going to be able to pay? The Jackson State boosters, what are they making? What are they going to be able to pay star recruits to come to their school? These kids took a sacrifice. They made a sacrifice to come there because of somebody they believed in. They gave up the luxury of some of the money that you talking about. Colorado was able to give Deon to move on. He talked them into and out of money to come to that school for a belief system. Then he leaves for money. He leaves for the bag. They could have just chased the bag. If you actually care about them kids as an individual, man, shit. UCLA offering you that much, take it. That's all you have to do. Because I'm going to do it if it comes up for me. That's what was going to happen. I appreciate the the comment from Leslie. But that's all man, I'm already over. I had a bunch of stuff to talk about. But this is something that we have to be cognizant of. At some point, we have to make a change. And the change has to come from us inside. I always say the revolution is not something that you're doing outward. It comes from inward. You got to fight for the way that we are educated and the way that we go about thinking about things, the way that we have been imprinted with this me mentality. Because as long as they teaching us how to act and how to react to things, to chase the bag, we're going to always be inferior to those that have the bag. Because we're going to do whatever they tell us to do to get the bag. And whatever they want us to do to get the bag. When you setting a trap for a mouse, you don't put grass on there. You don't put medicine on there. You entice them with something that they like. Whether it's cheese, peanut butter, whatever. You set the trap. And as long as you do that and the mouse keep going for that trap and he keep getting his back broke, then that's going to be a successful trap. They keep setting the trap for us. We got to recognize and come to terms with what's best for us as a people as opposed to an individual. We talk about a village. A village is not an individual. A village is not about being an individual. A village is about taking care of your own, having everyone working to take care of your own. That's the mentality. That's the hardest thing to do, is to come up with a revolution, an internal revolution, to change the way that we want to go about things. Like I was about to say earlier, I'm tired of people always complaining, but they don't want to do anything to get themselves out of the situation that they're in. It takes sacrifice to do that. I hope Deon the best. And I think that he will do well. I just feel bad. I'm interested to see how many kids are going to transfer, who's going to fill in the vacancy, and if there actually is going to be a movement for us as coaches, scholars, to teach our kids to take less money, teach our kids to sacrifice and be an example of that sacrifice. Because saying that we're going to sacrifice or using that word without doing it, it means nothing. If you're not going to set an example of sacrifice. A great example of sacrifice is him saying, they offer me this much money, but I'm here for y'all. You go out to recruit this other kid in Texas, this other kid in Florida, and he's thinking, man, I can make this much money here. Yeah, but I can make this much money there, but it's a bigger thing than that. You still be able to feed your family. Making $100,000 or doing whatever. We're building something here. That's like building the pyramids. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen with one individual. It's going to take a collective, and it's going to take a long time to do. I appreciate everyone showing up. Kevin Lewis on the Blueprint. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go over. I don't want to. But peace. Hope I have a better show for y'all next week.